Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast presented by Pete's Concrete. I am your host, Joshua Marshall, and my guest this evening is from the Brick Tournament. He's been on with us several times before, and he was just on Sports 1440 not too long ago, and it was a great hit. You probably can find that on the podcast versions of Sports 1440. And we have, and that is Sonny Sekhon. Sonny, how's it going?
Doing really good. How are you, Josh?
Good, buddy. Yeah, just doing the best I can. A little slip up last week, but in terms of the mental health, but back on that kind of trajectory and that grind. I know I've been leaning on you and talking to you, and you've been a great supporter through texting here and just talking, and appreciate the great friendship you and I have here. And you're a great person with a great heart, and yeah, just can't thank enough for having a great relationship. And I'm looking forward to this next hour with you because whenever we do these, they're very fun, Sonny. So
Thanks, man. Thanks for the kind words, and likewise, happy to hear that you're working on it. It's like anything else that you got an injury, you just keep working at it, man. So just
yeah,
keep going back to it, and your friends, we're all here for you. So, but
appreciate.
yeah, man,
Yeah, no, it was
congrats and
fun.
everything.
Yeah, it was fun. Like obviously, yeah, it was a bit of a yeah, it was birthday was kind of a bit of a good but rough day, and then kind of as the week played out, it was a bit rough on the weekend, and then before the game the other day, game three, we brought as I'll be coaching with Doug Ockenberg at the Southside Athletic Club. We took the U16 double A's and the U17 triple A's to the morning skate. So it was pretty sweet. So they got to meet Elliot Friedman and David Amber. So it was really nice. And Elliot Friedman, what a guy, Sonny. Like this guy, he came up first. So we had two different time slots with both people. So the kids can get a full kind of conversation. And you wouldn't be surprised at this, but we could talk about kind of this and get into the series. But yeah, Elliot came up. He told a great story to all the kids in terms of whatever role you play. It's a very important role. If you're a first line guy, you're a fourth line guy, you're a first D pairing, you're a last D pairing, you're the whatever goaltender you are, one or two. And he kind of talked about if you just play one game, Sonny, one game in the National Hockey League, you are the elite of the elite. And so it was a pretty cool story that he told the kids. And then after he went up to every single kid, there was about 32 of them. He shook every single one of their hands, asked them their names, and asked them which NHL player they covet the most or their favorite player. So a great 50 minutes with Elliot, and David pretty much did the same thing. So that's what we love about hockey, isn't it? Just great people like that do a great job kind of growing the game and taking time for our next generation of athletes.
Yeah, for sure. And like especially like it's nice to hear stories of guys like that have made careers in hockey that, you know, maybe those guys growing up didn't envision being in media, maybe they did, but those moments give an entire team like a new way to look at like a career in hockey too, and to be in and around the game. I wasn't surprised that I saw it on your social media. I'd only ever heard really good things about Elliot Friedman. I've never met him. I did meet David Amber once earlier this year and also thought he was just a gem. I was surprised by how big David Amber is in person.
He is. He's
Um,
a, he's
he's
a
a
big guy. Yeah.
he's a big dude. He's
Yeah.
like could be in the NFL. Yeah, he was at with free play. They had this. They brought like the NHL was doing like a museum on like diversity and like the history of it through the game. So he was there as a part of that, and yeah, just the way that he spoke and took time with, especially in that moment, because it was about you know players of color, and
Yeah.
so and like being representative of that community, it was awesome, and they both just seem like salty earth guys.
Yeah. They're both awesome, and they're great supporters of Anthony Stewart and hockey equality. They're both spokesmen, and they do some public speaking at Anthony's events. And Anthony's a friend of our podcast too. And as you know, he's a great person. Him and his brother Chris Stewart are doing an amazing job with hockey equality out east, and kind of maybe at some point branching out here. But yeah, just great people in every aspect. I look at it. They're just really solid individuals. And Speaking, let's transition to a solid individual because once a couple years ago, I met Darnell Nurse at Shatified. Plug them; they're our sponsor, and this is our Edmonton Oilers report, sponsored by our friends at Shatified Salon and Barbershop. They got 3 locations in Edmonton, so check them out. Tell them the Two Mots podcast sent you. Bob Stoffer was just there not too long ago, so he's looking all great. But yeah, a couple years ago during COVID, I went in to get my hair cut by Mo, and just before he was cutting my hair, before Darnell Nurse is pretty much all down to the wood here, Darnell was in there getting his hair cut. And obviously his sister's with Basketball Canada. She's a great WNBA player. So he was in there getting his hair cut with another individual that's with Basketball Canada. And he was just really nice. It was just us in there with Mo, and he was really nice towards me. And he knew that I knew Alexander Petrovic, and so it was a good conversation there. And this is after Petro went on to another organization, and just a great person. I know you kind of have a relationship with him. You don't have to dive in how deep that personal relationship is, but I'm sure you felt some empathy and compassion seeing his press conference yesterday, and the unfair, or I would say unfair. I don't think it's fair treatment that he's getting through the media here. I know one reporter took a big jab out of him, and then didn't have the stones to stand in front of him at a press conference the other day after he just carved them up pretty good. So I thought that was, if you're going to carve someone, have the stones to go and stand in front of them to at least have a conversation or ask them a question. Don't write a full article and do a full podcast on them and then duck the other way. But anyways, Darnell didn't start good last night for him, but finished good. But can you speak about the importance of Darnell Nurse, the great person, and how hard this could be for him right now going through this?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if I had never met him in my life or seen some of the stuff he's done for free play, and um, I think that might be relevant. I think you meant empathy, right? Like as a human being, um, I don't like to see people struggle, and he might not be playing his best hockey. And I always hate that type of reporting where it's just like you're looking for a reason to pile, and like nobody would be more aware of his struggles. You don't get to the NHL without a level of self-awareness and how you're doing and how you're performing. And then, it's like low-hanging fruit for some media. Like some media they'll quickly, oh, you're making more money than Makar, but this is the stat line, right? Like, Ted Lasso's that line is be curious, not judgmental. Like, I would love to see someone trying to figure out like what's happening and like turn it into a positive spin. Like at the end of the day, like um I thought the interview was like kind of hard to watch, but at the same time, the little bit that I know him, I was like, he's gonna have a big game. Like
Mm.
he just had this like FU mentality, like didn't like I'm gonna show you guys. And then yeah, it was a tough start. But you can't fault both goals. Like Wyatt Johnson's a stud. It's a 2-on-1 and he picks the corner. Like, you know, maybe that's a 50-50 play at best. And then puck from the point goes off his goes off him and into the net. Dash two. What happens? I heard that Perry got like super vocal on the bench, and that's what he's there for. And who leads the charge back? Perry, McLeod, and Nurse, right? And I thought, again, I'm not a coach, I'm not a professional scout or anything. I've watched a lot of hockey though, but for my money, I thought that was his best game of the playoffs, and that's all you need from him, right? Like he doesn't need to be Makar, he doesn't need to be Bouchard. He just needs to be him, and he needs to be that like angry, grumpy, fast as like lightning up and down the ice, Darnell Nurse. And
Yeah.
if we do that, I like our chances. I remember reading, I don't know who put him, and it's a lot of pressure, but like he was like the key piece to beating Dallas was like if you get Darnell Nurse like that, the one that we all love, we'd be in good shape. But yeah, I mean, I'm just super happy that it ended the way that it did, and I expect that he'll continue that. So
Yeah, it's a good story. Obviously, 2 unfortunate plays, and you could just see the weight on his shoulders as he went to the bench when the puck went off his rear end and in the net. That's really not his fault. It's a puck that's going wide and it hits him. But he is like a lightning rod in a way, but and it's tough. Like I was listening to Overdrive today, and like at some point we'll probably never have this happen, but at some point it probably has to happen. But we got, once the playoffs start, we got to stop tagging the salary to the player's name in the playoffs because if people don't know, people that aren't privy to this, like players don't get paid in the playoffs. They do get money in the playoffs, but it's bonuses per round. So if you
Mhm.
win or you lose in a round, there's a certain bonus that you get per your team. Like they obviously the owners are making a lot of money because the salaries stop at the last game of the regular season, and then it's full board, full ticket prices that the owners are getting. But the owners still give the players a certain amount of money as bonuses. And if you win the Stanley Cup, like a couple years ago, would have been actually probably like 10 years ago. I think it was the Blackhawks' first Stanley Cup. All players got $3 million. So some guys that were only making maybe $1 million got more because they won the Stanley Cup, and that's up to the owner. As far as I understand, there's no set rule of what the bonuses is in the National Hockey League. I could check on that, but my point is, you got to stop. We got to stop tagging the salary to the player when it comes to the playoffs. It'll probably never happen, Sonny. But what's your thoughts on that? Is that true? Is that a good thing, or is that?
Yeah, I think I like that philosophy in general, right? Like this time of year, like, and to be honest, most of those guys, like Darnell, Connor, Kachuk, Barkov, Zibanejad, Johnson, the guys that are left, the final four, they could literally get no money and they don't care. Like this is like they're there. This is they're living out their childhood dream. They're competing for the cups. Tanev's probably going to play tomorrow. He probably has a broken foot, right? Like
Yeah,
there's no amount of money that matters. But like I do like that the outlook of it. But it's just like I was trying to think about this today because like there's so many scenarios outside of professional sports. Like you can buy a house for $1.5 million in a boom economy, right? And 5 years later, that house could be worth like 900K. Like it's the circumstances of when you purchase something, the asset can appreciate or depreciate. Like Darnell Nurse, like what's he supposed to do? Like he played out, he bet on himself, he had great years. He did everything right and he earned what he got. So he goes into free agency in a year where there wasn't a ton of defensemen and the market gets set by Seth Jones and Zach Werenski signing 12 and like what was 9.5 and $8.5 million
yeah,
deals.
yeah,
So at that time, like, what are the Oilers actually supposed to do? Like, let him walk as if for nothing, and like imagine our defense core without Darnell Nurse. Never mind all the amazing things he does in the community and the loss it would be for Edmonton. Like that's a gaping hole on the blue line. And so he signs a big deal. He gets $9.5 million, and I think people got to stop like bitching and moaning about it. That is the reality.
yeah,
And is he going to go and put up Bouchard points? Probably not. But if he puts up a effort like he did last night for 82 games, you got to be happy about it. Because we've said this on this podcast before. There's not a team in the league where I don't think he cracks the top four,
mm-hmm.
right? Like he's like an unquestioned top four. Maybe the partner situation isn't helping him. And not to pile on CC, I don't think like that's fair either. But I think some of his best hockey was played with like a more offensive minded guy like Barry. But I don't know, right? Like, um, I was gonna ask you. I read something today about ex the experiment of making Darnell Nurse a forward, like Dustin Bufflin. Have you read any of that?
I have, and I heard that on some other podcasts. I even think Matt Murley on Spit and Chicklets was even talking about that too. And no, I hear it, I see it. It doesn't make sense. I think the biggest problem that we have in this market, like Kevin Bieksa took a, and we saw it. Kevin Bieksa took a shot at the media. He called them what did he call them? The Edmonton meat,
Yeah.
raw, dead, and dumb. So, and that's Kevin Bieksa. He's obviously a Canucks alumni and probably had his battles with Edmonton media. And trust me, there's some tough people in the Edmonton media. Like they're paid to have an opinion, and whether people don't like the opinion or not, that's it. They're getting a lot of money from if they work for Sportsnet or work for TSN or work for the Athletic, like that's their job. And anyone that listens to this podcast, we're complete opposite. And there's other podcasts that are the opposite of the same, but I think the problem with Nurse is we look at the number and then we look at the stats and we think, okay, every guy that makes $9 million as a defenseman is putting up 60 to 80 points, but he doesn't get that first power play time. Like really, the Oilers don't even they have a second unit, but they don't have a second unit.
Yeah,
And there's nothing wrong with that because like their power play is that good. They either score easily, so it's 2-0, it's 1-0 or whatever the score is before obviously that. It's not like the power play continues to stay 2 minutes after they score. Once they score, the time has run out. But that power play, those five guys are staying out for a full 2 minutes. And I think the problem is that we see like, hey, like they're out for 2 minutes, and other teams are really structured differently. And that's maybe a balance, but it's just that good. Those five guys are that good. They know they're out there for that 2 minutes, regardless if they finish it in two or they finish it in less or whatever. But I think we got to get to the point where you got to stop kind of comparing that, because anyone that gets like their boss says like, I'm going to sign you for this, and it says it's X amount more than what you made last year, you're going to take it, like. And you talked about it earlier, there was a run on defenseman the time his contract ran up, and he was on pace. He had 17 18 goals in the Canadian, the shortened season where they played in all the Canadian teams. But the pedigree showed that, and a lot of it is like organization problems with the salary cap too, because they bridged him twice. You had to pay him big time, just like Montreal bridged PK Subban, and when they bridged him twice, they had to pay PK Subban $9 million. It's just that's the going rate. It's the same thing, and people got to brace for themselves because it's going to happen again with Evan Bouchard. So got bridged, and Evan Bouchard is going to make at least $12 to $13 million in his next contract. If he
sure.
doesn't, he's going to fire his agent. He's $3.9 million next year, and then he's up for a new contract. So if he doesn't, like, by the time the cap goes up, another year of him getting better, another year of development, maybe he gets 100 points. That's easily a $13 million contract all day long. And if, yeah, his blunders defensively are what they are, but that's just the way the game works. And I think we got to get to a point with Darnell where you have to accept what you have, know there's still a great player there. There's also a human side of this too, and that's the problem I didn't like. And I think that because we also saw yesterday, and I agree with Elliot Friedman saying some players read everything, some players listen to everything. We found out yesterday Darnell reads and hears everything through the media. So would you agree with that from what his reaction was?
Yeah, like I think and even his reaction and like the way McDavid came to his defense, like, offered to take the question. I thought that was great leadership too. And then Brown post game, like talking about, yeah, I think most are probably aware. And he's Darnell has talked about it before. I think he was on Luke Gazdick's podcast, and he said something hilarious about like he's been blamed for everything from like traffic on the Henday to like a bad goal, right?
Yeah,
But like I said, and that like as the human side, like, man, if I'm having a bad day at work, I don't want to hear about it. Like, I don't want to get piled on, I want solutions. I want people to show me a way out of it.
yeah,
So it's like, yeah, like these guys, yeah, they're professional athletes. They make a lot of money. They're in the limelight. They live rock star lifestyles, but they're still humans, right? Like,
yeah,
um, and I don't know anybody that wants to hear 10 different ways, uh, 10, like 24 hours a day about how shitty they are, right?
yeah.
But that's again, I give them like his press conference was hilarious, like short, sweet, got the hell out of there, and he carried that angry mood on
To the
right through
game.
the game and had a great game, and I hope he continues it and just has the media just like you know eat their words. I really liked what BX said too, and like, I never in a million years would have thought that I would have been becoming a BX fan, but
Yeah,
BX was talking about how he went back because they're talking about the minus and like how he's a minus whatever it is. So Bieksa went and watched, I guess, all the goals, and he's like, there was 2 goals of like a run of 15 that were like you could say were Darnell's fault. He's on the ice, someone doesn't get a puck out, someone makes a turnover, and it's like, what is the guy supposed to do, right? Like, um, but yeah,
And
again,
Chris Knobloch kind of talked about that too the day before in the press conference, right? He goes, maybe a bad goal, maybe the guy didn't get the puck out. You're eating minuses because something happened on the ice that was not out of your control. So I agree with that, Sonny. You're right on that and on that analogy, and BX is saying that too.
yeah, and like, yeah, again, the little bit that I've got to know the guy, it's like he he cares a lot about the things, at least the things that I see. And this is like the main thing. It's like his family in this. So like, why wouldn't he take that to personally, Like I was thinking of that Michael Jordan, and I took that personally thing all day. I was like, oh, he's gonna have that kind of moment. And yeah, he definitely can play at that level. And if he plays at that level for the next, potentially 3 games against the Stars, I like our chances.
Yeah,
So
100%. And anything more you want to say there before we transit trans move over to the game and kind of what the game was last night, and obviously teeing up a pivotal game 5
no, I was gonna ask, like, what did you make of BX's comments? Like,
about
I
the
just,
Edmonton media.
yeah, I like couldn't stop laughing, and if
Yeah,
like
I was watching it like full. I was watching it live, and I just instantly, obviously knowing Kelly Rudy, I have a more and Ron. I just like I love Kelly's reaction, and I know you sent it to me too, and it was just like Kelly's reaction. But it's tough.
Ron was almost laughing too.
He
Ron had to like
was,
look,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Luke Gazdick was not laughing at all because I
he's
think,
probably just shocked.
yeah, he was shocked, and maybe he wears the Oiler jersey a lot. Like, hey, and it full disclosure, I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, so like Brian Hayes said on Sports Center with Jay Onrait last week, like you're cheering for Connor McDavid's legacy to win a Stanley Cup, but any Leaf fan or Canuck fan or Flame fan, you're not cheering for the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup. Just be and like Barn Burner, the guys in Calgary, that's a Barn Burner podcast with Rhett Warner, Boomer, and Pinder. They were on with Frank Cervalli, and Frank goes, "Oh, it's 23 Canadians, 1 American. Like, is Canada's team?" And I agree, it's not Canada's team; it's Edmonton's team. Let's get that straight. This is Edmonton's team. So, as a Leaf fan, no, I'm not going to cheer for the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup. I have more of a rooting interest because Alexander Petrovic on the other end of the Stars has a chance at winning a Stanley Cup. So, and that's a friend and a family friend of mine. So like, I grew up with the Petros and great family, but at the end of the day, yeah, you want to see Connor and Leon win. And but the thing is, like, I don't have credentials through the Oilers. I have credentials through the Calgary Flames. The Oilers are very accommodating when we want to do morning skates and stuff like that. So great organization. It's just funny when the Oilers lose, it's trade everyone. We're rebuilding. When they win, it's like we won the Stanley Cup. Like everything's great again. So it's a high and low of an Oiler fan situation. But I won't sugarcoat it. Like it, some of the people I know in the media and Edmonton media, like some of the people are friends of mine and I know them, but at the end of the day, their job is to have an opinion whether we like it or not. They are paid, their paychecks are signed to have an opinion. So whether they have something we agree with or disagree with, it's tough. I will say this, full disclosure, I'll get heat for this. Every fan, if you're a media guy for the Oilers, whether you work for TSN or Sportsnet, you are a fan. Let's not kid ourselves. You're a fan. Like you're a fan of the team. So I know they all say there's no rooting interest and there's none of this, but at the end of the day, Sonny, we can get in this debate if you want or not. I don't know where you come out on this, but if you cover Team 82 games and then all playoffs, and it's year after year after year, you eventually become a fan. And if you're from here, it's hard not to be. And I'll say this: the reason why I know that, and I can say that, because I'm in the Calgary Flames press box. So being in the Calgary Flames press box, I seen it firsthand. Like we cheer. Like the mood after a win in the locker room is way better for us when we're trying to interview players. And a lot of the great conversations happen when the microphone is not live and the camera is not on because you're somewhat like friends with the guys. So you're cheering. And if he had a bad game, like you're trying to answer the best question possible so you don't jamming the guy up because you are a fan. You got to ask that guy more questions throughout the years. You think you want to piss him off? So I understand some guys look at it differently in the media side. Like, I know there's the Mark Spectors or there's the Eric Francises that, Frank Saravalli's. Their job is to be opinionated based because that's where they get their clicks. And hey, man, our podcast after an Oilers loss is way higher than an Oilers win. Like when the Oilers lose, numbers are through the roof on a download or a play or all that. It's crazy. But when they win, no one wants to listen to anything. They're just like, okay, they won. They're moving on. They're drinking. So I know I rambled on pretty long here and answering
No,
a long part of answering your question. So I,
it's funny with human nature that way. Like obviously my background, I was at Henry Singer for still there. And it's just, when I remember when Google reviews came out, it's like, you know, we do thousands and thousands of fittings a year, weddings, and the only people that end up leaving reviews are like the one or two that are like bad. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
it's just funny that way. But no, I just like I said, I saw Rudy's reaction. I honestly thought it was like an AI thing at first because all those AI videos were going around.
yeah.
And then I saw it, I was like, holy. So yeah, I'm becoming a big BX fan, and he obviously stole the show too when when Ron tried to put the jersey
Yeah,
down.
I just quickly grabbed it. But
Yeah.
that's his nature, and I think we got to get used to that. And that's obviously he won an award this year for best hockey analyst. So he won a screen award for that. And he's been a great ad for Sportsnet, and he speaks his mind. That's what you want. You want a guy that speaks their mind and tells the honest truth. And I believe that's what he does. Like, is all Edmonton that way? Probably not. But some media probably, right? Like, it's tough. Like, and we seen it with Cal in the Vancouver when Philip Peronic was getting asked a question. Like, he already answered the question. He didn't get hurt. He just said no. There was no injury. And then you want to go back at him and back at him and back at him. You wonder why you get like a mean response or a response that you
Yeah.
might not like when he's already just told you the truth. No, I didn't have an injury.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and that's the thing is I always defer to the players. Like if I watched the game, but I played at a certain level, but I didn't play at the NHL level, I didn't play at the AHL level, I didn't play at the Western Hockey League level or anything like that. Well, I say I'm confident in my abilities of understanding the game and to coach the game, but if I need to know something really well, if I think I saw it this way, I'm happy I can text a player to be like, hey, what did you see here? Did you see this? Is this the way I saw it? Did I see it right? And sometimes it's no, and sometimes it's yes. But I'll always defer to the players because they'll know what's better. Like they know when, like we know it too. Like we play ball hockey. Now it's a different scale of NHL, but we know if we play on a hockey team or a ball hockey team, we know that like if this guy that comes to our team, we know whether he's going to help us or not, right? So when like they make trades or make signings or pick guys up on waivers, these players know if that guy is going to help you or not. They're not going to dog you if the guy doesn't help you, but they'll at least be honest and be like, yeah, I don't think that guy can help me. But we're seeing a strong belief, and that's a good transition over to the bold coaching moves that Chris Knobloch's made here. Like, how wild is that? In some of these moves he's made, where everything is checking sevens, everything is going perfect. He's hitting the right buttons. He's not calling timeouts at the wrong time. He's calling timeouts at the right time. Like, he easily could have called the timeout at 2-0, no shots on goal. It's 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes in. They have 4 shots. We have 0 shots, but he doesn't. He inserts a veteran player like you talked about earlier, and Corey Perry, who will say something on the bench. That's your timeout right there. Just a veteran player, been there before. I want a cup. I understand the situation. Let's get to work. Just thoughts on some of the moves he's made with the goaltending and inserting players in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, like you know, uh, I don't want to call it a master class yet, but like he's doing stuff that, just the balls it takes, the courage to to make these moves, like going to Pickard and then going to back to Pickard and then going back to Skinner, like, you know, he must, they talk about how he's always communicating with the players. He must have great relationships with all these guys and he must know them on like such a level that like he knows when it's on or off and when to push. And because I don't, they pulled Skinner in Vancouver. He struggled a little bit, but it's also possible the guy was just tired, right? Like one playoff game, like emotionally, is probably like playing 5 regular season games, right? Never mind the fact that this is an Edmonton-born kid, cheered for the Oilers his whole life, now playing at home, and is aware of all of the pressure that this could be the team to win. So he gets that reset and he bounces back, and then, um, you know, being able to take a young kid with like McLeod out and then know to insert him, and then it's been nuts. Like, and I think the moves, like the roster moves, have been great, but also just like his willingness to like tinker within the game. Like if something's not going right, he doesn't wait till an intermission. It's like between him and his coaching staff, there's changes. Um, and yeah, I mean you need that. Like you look at the coaches that are left, they've all been there before, and it takes everybody. And so it's been fun to watch, honestly. Like I didn't know anything about Knobloch when he got hired. I truthfully didn't even know who he was. Like
Yeah.
never heard of him. Um, so I was, a little skeptical at first because I'm like a lot that was like, oh, is it going to be Gallant? Is it going to be Quenneville? Like recycle the old school coaches, but he's been great, and it's been a fresh, like, breath of fresh air, and I just hope he keeps pressing those buttons.
And so do coaches that are in his situation at the college level, American Hockey League level. Because if they're a guy like him can do it, then it gives those other coaches the opportunity to do it too, and being like, look, a young guy that just needed an opportunity can take the team to a far dance. And we'll move over to this. And I agree. I was talking to James Duthie today about this, and I want to get your thoughts too. James said that he thought if ever Connor and Leon were at a point of sniffing a Stanley Cup. Now we understand that a few years ago they made the conference final, but they didn't win a game. This is the closest they've ever got. They're 2 wins away to getting to a Stanley Cup final. Um, are you on the trajectory of thinking if they sniff a Stanley Cup, if they're at a point of sniffing like they are right now, that it's just a foregone conclusion that they're just going to get it, if they're going to win it, just because that they would want it much more than maybe the other guy on the other end would?
No, I don't think it's a four. Like, uh, put it this way: they get through Dallas. I like their odds. They made short work of LA, who has always been hard, and so that showed me that they've learned over 3 years how to handle that team and how to handle the system they don't like to play and how to play in those ugly games. Then through 7 games with Vancouver, first you were able to get past the fact that they pumped you all regular season, and you still won a series in where there were games where we were literally giving it away. And so you grow through that, and then you could come into Dallas, and I still think Dallas is probably the deepest team left. So if you can get through this, you're battle tested. But you know, so then you're gonna play Florida, or you're gonna play New York. Connor and Leon, they want it real bad, but I don't think that they necessarily want it more than a Kachuk or like a Shesterkin. Like
Yeah.
all of those guys, like I do like the odds if we get through, because at the end of the day, like I always defer to, if everything else is equal, we still have Connor and Leon, right? Like it's those are those game breakers, right? And but it's going to be a battle. And like, Florida lost. They remind me a lot of like Pittsburgh, and they go to the final, they lose to Detroit, and now they're on the trajectory where they could go to the final again. They know intimately what it feels like to be right there and lose it. So um, it'll be great hockey, but we've said this several times throughout the year. I don't see why the Oilers can't do it. Like um, Skinner Skinner doesn't have to be Shesterkin. He doesn't have to be Bobrovsky. He doesn't have to be Ottinger. Skinner has to be Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner has to have a 90 save percentage, and he just has to make the saves you expect. He's shown at times throughout the playoffs that he can steal you a game. He stole one in LA. and he's played well. Yes, he's given some away, but based on like how the Oilers play, they can usually get a couple to offset that. Um, I like how the forwards are going. Like Brown's heating up, like getting a shorty from Yanmark, McLeod putting it in. They get a little bit sturdier in the back end, and we just had a long talk about Darnell and his best game. Uh, They have everything right there. They
Mhm.
they have the coaching. Um, yeah, I don't know, long-winded answer, but
No, I think it's a good one. Like it's very justifiable to look at that and see that too. And like these four teams that are there, they're there for a reason. And it's like they deserve the opportunity. It wasn't like a Cinderella 8 seed team that got to here and they're getting off. They're just getting by fumes and stuff like that. They're literally putting in the work, and I think it's impressive because Dallas is Edmonton's winning in ways we never thought they would ever be able to win, and literally almost every single night they're putting up a defensive clinic. Like Dallas didn't get a lot of shots last night. Yes, they started good, but that once the Oilers locked in, it they don't give up much. Like it's hard. Like, and I said this to like I even say this to myself because obviously I'm not an Oiler fan, but I say this to my friends that are not Oiler fans. We have to embrace that this team is going to win a Stanley Cup. Like you fully have to embrace it. As much as you hate it as an opposition fan, you have to embrace it. It goes back to what I said many years ago. Generational talent players drafted and developed in organizations that they come out of, they go on to win Stanley Cups. The history is all there. I don't need to name all it off. Anyone that knows hockey will understand that. Anyone's listening will understand it. So I think that's where we're at here with this. It's a foregone conclusion that at some point, and I'm going back to that is because I think at some point, and I don't know the answer to this. So there's a few things I want to go here. So the next one I'll go. I after Dallas eliminated Colorado and they obviously took out Vegas. So that's the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion teams. Now, if they were to beat the Oilers and say whoever they beat, Rangers will be a tough out, Florida will be a tough out. But if and I know it's like they're 6 wins away from this, so I'm looking too far in the future. But if they were to hold off and win the Stanley Cup, Dallas, I think it's the most successful Stanley Cup championship win in the history of our game.
for
Just
sure.
because like you knocked off Vegas, powerhouse team. You knocked off the defending champs a couple years ago in Colorado. Arguably, right now your toughest test is the Oilers. Probably the deepest this organization's ever been. You got two of the best players on the other end. You got Evan Bouchard, who's probably one of the best defenseman, if not the best defenseman in the National Hockey League. So it's like it just, you just look at it, it's like more success. You got Zach Hyman, who's just one of the best grinders in and out of the game. Like it's just there's such a great there, but the Oilers can also do it too. So a lot can happen there. I don't know where you come out on Dallas's kind of potential run here. There's a lot could happen. They could easily lose the next two, and the Oilers can win the next two, and all that. Of it. Where are you at with that kind of comment there?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, if Dallas were to take it all, um, yeah, that has to be one of the hardest routes, in modern history for sure. Um, and then even like the way some of those series went, like I think like Colorado a little bit better, but like they went down 2-0 against Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And didn't sound the panic button. Pete DeBoer obviously knows that team very well, both those teams, and then they come out of that series and um, against a hard team, and then Colorado, like there was points in that series where it's like it didn't even look like Colorado was like capable of playing to their level. So yeah, I mean they would get absolute full marks. Like, do I want them to go? Absolutely not.
Right. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but I'm also like I've said this on this all the time. I'm a hockey fan first. I've been in and around the game a long time. I've always liked Edmonton's chances, but I have said several times that I didn't expect Edmonton to beat Dallas. Like if I take the emotion out of it and I look at and I think about it just rational, we have the top heavy nuclear warheads in Connor and Leon, but overall depth, defensive side, and then goaltending, they have us, they have the edge in every category. Knobloch is a fantastic coach. He's done amazing this year. Pete DeBoer's been to the finals with like four different franchises, right? So um I wouldn't have said it was David and Goliath. It was a coin flip for me. So at this point, I'm actually enjoying games because I'm like, this is all bonus. But here we are, and they like the Oilers are 2 wins away from doing it. So um and yeah, I mean that's the foregone like, we're making it sound like it's gonna be real easy to beat an Eastern team, and yeah, I don't know. But if Dallas does manage to pull it off, like that is a heck of a run.
It is. It is. It's a run you can't disclose for sure. Okay, so start of the year, even at the end of the last year, the comment of cup or bust was made by Connor and Leon. In your opinion, no one's been able to kind of ask this on our podcast yet because it probably hasn't happened to understand what it is because one or the other hasn't happened. But cup or bust, what does cup or bust mean to you? As an outsider, as a hockey fan, as a hockey analyst, as a fan of this organization too, were you out on the comment of cup or bust for the Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah, I liked it, and like a lot of people, I like when Leon is like, it was a lot of people talk about how he's like the vocal leader of the Oilers. Obviously, Connor's the captain, best player in the world, but Leon will often say those types of things. Uh, I liked it, and I didn't take it as well. If we don't win a cup, he's not re-signing, and he's going to go sign in Boston to play with Pastrnak or wherever and take his 15 million bucks and off he goes. That never entered my head at all. I think it just, it goes back to what you're saying about Connor's a generational player and Leon's like right up there. I just think that that was like the mindset that like nothing else matters. They don't care about individual accolades. They don't care about whether they finish first or they're a wild card seat. It just matters about getting to the playoffs and getting to the cup. Like that is the standard. And it was to me, and like, when you saw when they won LA, it was just such a business. There's no celebration. It was like on to the next one, and then get through Vancouver, a very emotional series, win it in seven, not celebrating, on to the next one, and so I feel like that's been the mantra. Like, and that's not a bad standard to have as a franchise and an organization. Um, if it's just nothing else would be satisfactory to those guys, and that's what I took from it. And I feel like that's how they're playing, right? Like
It
it
is cup or bust to them, right? Like it would
for
be a huge
sure.
disappointment if they don't. And I think the next 2 years is a big part because we can go to the Leafs situation here in terms of being like, you can't win when you pay this amount of players this amount of money. That's going to be on the horizon for the Edmonton Oilers very soon here. Like that is a very realistic possibility within the next 2 years. And I do think it was right for the Leafs not to go all in. They didn't trade the first round pick. They didn't trade any of their top prospects. They moved some pieces to get some pieces, but they didn't go all in because I think in Toronto's situation, it was an 18-month window situation dating back to when Brad Treliving first took over the team because it was like, I got to get Matthews re-signed and I got to get Nylander re-signed. Once I can get those two guys re-signed, then we'll see where we're at. The cap will obviously go up. So I think that's kind of where it's at. So now in Edmonton, you look at it, like we've seen the pattern here. So Nathan McKinnon wins a Stanley Cup, he gets $12.5 million. Austin Matthews doesn't win a Stanley Cup, doesn't really get out of the first round, let alone the second round, but gets $13 million. So Draisaitl and Rantanen are up at the same time, and then Bouchard and McDavid are up at the same time. So Draisaitl and Rantanen, in just in terms of, like, it'll be interesting to see what Mikko Rantanen signs for in Colorado, but it will a lot be more interesting to see what Leon resigns for in Edmonton come this July 1st, because I think he'll sign this July 1st, and I think it's like $14 million. Maybe it's even $15 million. Maybe it's $15 million if he wins the Stanley Cup and gets the Conn Smythe. Maybe that's where that number gets higher. But then Connor's going to surpass that, and Evan Bouchard's not going to surpass it, but Evan Bouchard's going to be in that window where he's at least making, because if Rasmus Dahlin's making 12, there's no way like Bouchard makes less. And we've seen it in Canadian markets. The players dictate what they want. If they're not going to get what they want, they're going to leave. Just like Matthew Tkachuk left, just like Johnny Gaudreau left. And not saying you won't really want to compare those kind of two players maybe to the Connor and Leons, but like if you're not going to really want to resign and want that, you're just going to leave regardless. And I don't want to get into the conversation because I don't think we're there yet because they haven't indicated such forth of them leaving. But the realistic possibility is as Oilers fans in the next couple of years, you got to understand like your salary cap situation going to play a big difference. Now the cap will go up by the time Connor signs his contract and that kicks in, the cap will be $100 million.
Mhm.
So we can brace for that. But where are you at with like the salary situation here with these guys? Is it justified? Do you think those are the right numbers? Am I wrong on thinking that?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's always the possibility that like there's a curveball, right? Where you go back to the Malkin, Crosby, and yeah, like different time, different salaries, where you know, 15 million, 14 million, you're making more money than you're ever gonna know what to do with.
Yeah.
Um, I think, if they get to the cup finals, they win a cup. They get to the cup finals, they lose a cup. They got that taste for it. I don't know. I would certainly be trying to have a conversation where it's like, listen, like, hey, Leon, we're gonna sign you to 14 for 8, and Connor, you're gonna get 14 the same. Or, leave a million or 2 million bucks on the table so that we can build around you. But even if they don't, right? Like players like Leon, players like Connor, they don't come up. It's a generational player. If they want 15 million bucks, I give them the 15 million bucks and I figure the rest out. The other thing that could happen is, this is no fluke anymore. Like Edmonton is a quality organization. Anybody that says otherwise is just salty or not paying attention. They've been in the conference finals 2 of the last 3 years. They've lost consecutively to the teams that have gone on to win. They have the nicest facility in the world. I was lucky enough to just do a tour of the dressing room the other day, and I was just like, who wouldn't want to play here? And then now you add the fact that you have those two locked up. They've been to the finals. I think you're going to start to see guys like we've already seen it, like Corey Perry signing here, and Evander Kane coming here like 2 years ago, where you're not going to get them for free. But I think people that are chasing that cup that haven't got it yet are probably going to start to look to like, well, why don't we sign a short-term deal in Edmonton? Um, and then the other saving grace for that is the cap going to 100 million in 2 years is a very real thing. So that will be very helpful.
Yeah.
The one thing I hope that they start to address a bit here is just the and I don't know intimately the prospect pool for us, but it seems a little light. I feel like all these other contending teams have all of these 20 to 25-year-old players that can come in at the league minimum because they're still trying to break in and compete for those, 7 to 10 minute a night uh roles. And we have some of them, and there was some bad luck. Like, I think Hamblin would probably be with the team right now if he wasn't hurt. And, you got Lavoy, but I think that could use a little bit more love in like in Bakersfield and down the whole stream. But yeah, I don't know. I would give Draisaitl whatever he wants. I would do everything to keep him here, and I would figure the rest out kind of as you go. So
Yeah. We'll finish up on that as the prospect pool part. I strongly believe the main reason one of the main reasons why Jeff Jackson came in, left the agency, left a prominent agency in Wasserman where he was Connor McDavid's agent to come here. And I think he's seen the bigger picture in terms of being like, hey, like great team, they're getting some veterans, but the prospect pool is not there. And there's no secret, Ken Holland doesn't have a contract for next year. There were a lot of rumors that he was going to go to Columbus. We saw that is not happening. Don Weatherall took over the full organization, GM position, president of hockey operations, all that. So, but I think if Ken Holland comes back, he's not back as a general manager with the Edmonton Oilers. Maybe he's back in some hockey ops as an advisor role Um, and I'm gonna keep this name. I'm gonna bring this name up, and I think people should keep an eye on it. Is Mark Hunter? There's a relationship between Mark Hunter and Jeff Jackson, and Mark Hunter did an amazing job with the Toronto Maple Leafs in drafting and developing a lot of their core players that they've have right now, and some of the guys in the minors. Obviously him and Kyle Dubas didn't see eye to eye, and anyone knows. Look at the London Knights organization; they're a pillar in junior hockey ranks for a reason, and it would take a lot for him to probably leave that position in the OHL to take an NHL job. There were a lot of rumors earlier in the year that maybe he's going to join the Islanders. That didn't happen. And there's a lot of rumors right now that he might take over the GM position with the Edmonton Oilers. And my point in saying that is this guy knows players. He knows character. He knows tendencies. He is so great at drafting and developing. And I do think he's right for the picking. And I do think that that's a name we should keep an eye on because, if Connor and Leon do stay, they're going to need that next wave of young players coming up in the organization. It's not there right now. I agree with you. It's not horrible. Like there's still some good players that can pan out. You got to take your time with them. But I think if he comes in, the big reason why he's coming in is for his scouting in terms of like the younger players around junior ranks, college, NCAA, all that stuff. So it'd be interesting to see. I don't know if you want to kind of comment on that and what you know about Mark Hunter, and obviously you kind of commented earlier that you probably need to beef that up, but I think that's a way you do it, and I think that was one of the biggest reasons why Jeff Jackson left the position he was in because I think the conversation between him, Daryl Cates, Paul Coffey was like, we want to be good for the next 10 years, but the only way we're going to do that is if we go to this model of drafting and developing like the Dallas Stars have, right?
Sure. Or like Holland's past successes in Detroit. Like
Yeah.
you make the playoffs to what, 20 years straight. You have arguably like two dynasty runs where they did exactly what you just said. Like in the early days, it was Yzerman, Lidstrom, and Shanahan, those guys, and it was the Zetterbergs and the Datsuks that were the fringe players, and then they learned the ropes. They won their cups later,
And all those
and
guys are in Dallas now. Like Joe McNamara is the guy that is looked after Wyatt Johnson, Logan Stankoven, Heiskanen, all those guys went with Jim Nill there. So,
Mm.
so sorry, finish your thought
No,
there.
no, that's like I think for long-term organizational success, that's what needs to happen. And in the absolutely insane event that one or both of those guys did leave, you need that sooner than later, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Before we go here, thoughts on what's your outcome for Game 5 here? As this will release on Friday. Uh, get a quick thought. Where are you at? Obviously, Tanev broken foot. He was seen at the airport here in Edmonton with a walking boot, but if we know Chris Tanev's probably going to play with a broken foot. So probably easier once they took that boot off his skate off. It was probably hard to get it back on during a game. So I would assume they'll do everything they possibly can tomorrow to get him in a skate all game. But we've seen players play with worse injuries than that too. But what's your thoughts for Game 5? Obviously, go with the same lineup, but prediction thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think I would change anything. Like, um, you know, Desharnais, I don't know that he necessarily deserved to be the odd man out, but Broberg played well, and you got to win. And as we said earlier, they were able to hold Dallas off low, like not a lot of high quality chances. Um, I think the Oil will take the Game 5. Um, and then they got to lose twice. I think, it seems like as the series has gone on, every game Connor and Leon are like ratcheting it up a bit more and a bit more. And it's like what you said, it's like we know how bad they want it and they know they're close. And I expect the best games out of them yet. And yeah, I guess that's what I would expect. I hope these guys, I know we talked about cup or bust and with that mentality. and they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves, right? Like nobody puts more pressure on them than themselves. But I hope for a moment they also look at like they live in a hockey crazy market. Yeah, Edmonton's nuts. We're all crazy. We want a cup so badly. But if they had like reframed it and were like, if the Oilers lose two in a row, I'm going to be upset. I'm still a fan. If they win a cup, I don't even know how I'm going to handle it. I just, if they recognize the opportunity that they have to bring this to the city, and like, instead of like the pressure of failure, just like the opportunity of what it's going to be like for yourselves and that feeling for the rest of your life. And then for a city of 1 million people, I think I would be hanging on that and going into game 5 and 6. And yeah, it's I can't even think about it. I get like goosebumps thinking about like what that
Yeah.
would feel like. But yeah, I think I'm confident. I think they take the next one, and then who knows after that.
Yeah, I was saying because I talked to a bunch of my friends and guys in our podcast chat to Clay, Trevor, and Rupper that I regardless of the 2-0 start by Dallas last night, I just said lots of times, guys, they were like here's the blow up, here comes Pickard, timeout, Nurse is gonna leave the bench, not come back, all that stuff. It's all this doom and gloom. I just replied in the chat. I said a lot of hockey to be played. Obviously, they pulled it out, but the reason why I said that is I didn't think Dallas. A lot of respect to Dallas, but to beat the Oilers 3 games in a row, that's tough. That's
Mhm.
really tough. And that's in saying that that's what would have to happen on the other end here. Not real necessarily because there's obviously potential 3 games. There's definitely 2 games to be had, but there could be another one in a game 7, and obviously we know Pete DeBoer is 8-0 in game sevens. But
Three games.
yeah, so it's just like I still have to go to my prediction, and that was Rangers Oilers Cup final. It's not really looking good because obviously the Rangers lost tonight, and in a tough loss, 1 whole game loss. Man, that's a dagger. You get a late goal, you pull the goalie, and then you lose the game winning goal is an empty net goal in a 3-on-2, or in a 3-2 final. So I just these early goalie pulls I'm not a big fan of, but in case in points, the reason is like that. You had a lot of time to tie it up, and you did. But anyways, yeah, I think Dallas wins tomorrow. I think Edmonton wins game 6, then it goes game 7, and Pete DeBoer will be 8-1 in game 7s is my kind of prediction. So I did say this would go 7. So let's see on that. But yeah, it should be a good game regardless of whatever fan base you're cheering for. Just go out and cheer, and be happy that we got some great playoff games to sit here and watch every single night. And unfortunately, the Stanley Cup could be potentially won on June 24th. So it's quite late in the year. I don't know why that is, but I can think it's probably has something to do with the US markets and TNT and ESPN. But anyway, Sonny, appreciate your time. Always great conversation with you. Anything you want to plug before we sign out?
No, we got just go Oilers, and we're a month away from brick, so we'll
Okay.
get another brick combo soon.
Yes, we will for sure. All right. Thanks, Sonny, and take
No
care.
worries, man. Thanks, Josh.